Paltrocast.
Thank you for taking the time. I've been very aware of you for a long time, never had the pleasure of meeting you, and very aware for decades of the artists that you basically pay the mortgages of through your great work. So, how's your day going aside from having to do an interview where you're going to just get a lot of compliments?
Well, I like a lot of compliments. I have many days where I don't get a lot of compliments. I live in a very schizophrenic world where some people absolutely love what I do for them, and other people give me grief for trying to protect my clients. So, it's kind of this weird thing where I can walk down the street and someone can throw a rock at me, and then when I get to where I'm going, they appreciate it. So, that's, I guess, the downside of picking sides.
Yeah. Now, speaking of what you're saying, I did not that this is the Darren Paltrowitz interview, but I promise it ties into Mr. Randall Wixen, and that's I spent a couple of years working at Viacom in the MML department, and a lot of the times the people would see the name Wixen, they go because they knew that like okay the negotiation might be a little tougher, but then flipping this around and reading your book, I get it from the different perspective, which is you're protecting your artists and you want to make sure that they're compensated fairly and everything's papered.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of people that will take advantage of songwriters, and every day you get something from, well, we're only a little Canadian production, and we really don't have the big budgets. And my answer is, but you're asking for worldwide rights. You're airing it on Amazon. If you were just putting it on Canadian TV, it would be a different price. But, worldwide rights cost what worldwide rights cost, even if you're, only producing it with a small budget in Canada.
Yes, it's kind of funny who's a small time studio, yet they use words like in perpetuity. So, in other words, they're sophisticated enough to know that they need to clear everything, all media forever and ever in the universe, but they have no budget.
Yeah, I mean, we've got really nailed on one that got past us, where it was a Australian TV show. And yeah, it's probably just going to show in Australia, but we need worldwide rights because and perpetuity, because that's what the network is requiring from us. And we're only doing a few episodes. Well, it turned out that it was ABC television doing it in prime time United States and trying to get it for $2,000 or something.
Smart, evil. I mean, they sometimes go hand in hand, but back to positivity and your book and all that. It's
Right.
clearly a long time in the making, seeing that we lost Tom Petty so long ago, yet he's so early into the book and it's updated with modern examples. How long would you say it is from the start of it to the version of it that we see now?
The book?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. The first one, let me see, it says in the first edition was 2005. And it was actually some other guy's idea. I was watching the parade, the Rose Parade from his office in Pasadena. And he said, what would really help you, get the business going is if you wrote, a book, the Bible on music publishing. And I looked at him and I said, so how long do I have to do this? And he says, okay, you got a week. And we both laughed at it. And then since it was actually the holidays, it was actually New Year's Day, and I had another week off, I sat down and wrote it. And I sent it to him within a week, the first version. And I said, now what? And he said, well, we have to get a publisher. But yeah, that was, something, it kind of happened as a joke. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I went ahead and did it. And then we augmented it. And this is the 5th US edition. And there's also one UK edition that's specific to UK law that I had some help with because I'm not as involved in the UK as I am in the United States.
So the quick answer is almost 20 years in the making, given the updates and all that. You know, in other words, a lot of people, when they write a how-to book, they never update it. In your case of updating it using modern examples, but also having the Tom intro and all that, it really feels like a new book.
Yeah, I gotta say that it's the most updated version of all of them because so much has happened in the last few years with the CRB hearings, Music Modernization Act, the MLC. So it's been really crazy, and this one was just almost a complete rewrite.
So another thing that I really enjoy and respect about you and Wixen, and I'm not going to say what the word is, but a certain species that you put that word in and then the email goes through. Where did that idea come from?
Okay, so that's not a thing anymore.
Oh,
But you don't have to put in a certain word to in the subject line to have the email go through. But that was originally started in the days before spam filters. And you know, and right now we use a company program called Barracuda, which I think is actually owned by Microsoft. And it goes through intelligently or semi-intelligently and prevents me from getting Viagra ads and corporate line of credits all day long. But the word was crayfish.
okay, you said it.
And you know, the guy who wrote the rule for incoming emails, the tech guy, said just think of a password that has to be put on the subject line. And I just said the first thing that occurred to me. And that was the word crayfish. So for years we were getting emails, and if it didn't have the word crayfish in the subject line, someone would get a bounce back saying, we don't know who you are, you could be spam. You know, call our front desk and ask to be put on our allowed sender list.
So I almost borrowed that concept when I was writing my book about David Lee Roth. I knew that people, you mentioned Pasadena before. That's why I feel comfortable talking DLR for a second. I knew that Dave's team knew what I was doing and was tracking me. And I was offering them a truce by saying, all you have to do in this next post or two is just use the word codfish. And I never got the codfish. So I never got the confirmation that they were following me, but I knew they were following me. So that was a borrowed idea from Wixen.
Yeah, you know, my David Lee Roth story. I hope I'm getting the names correct. Is that one of our groups a long time ago, I think it was Jughead's Revenge,
Oh yeah,
needed to come
Screeching
up.
Weasel offshoot band.
Yeah, they needed to
Yeah.
come up with a name for their publishing company. They were starting a publishing company. I said, send me 3 name choices in order of preference. The first one was David Lee Roth is God Music. And I said, I don't think we can do that name unless we ask David Lee Roth. So somehow I got his fax number. I sent him a fax and said, Jughead's Revenge wants to call their publishing company David Lee Roth is God Music. Is that okay with you? And he just wrote back on it, God bless him, and sent it back.
That reminds me of a story that I compiled from another, punk band, the Muffs. Ronnie from the band the Muffs had claimed the Instagram account at David Lee Roth, and they actually had to buy the Instagram from him. So my guess is whoever was handling Dave over the years never checked domains. They never checked social media handles, publishing names. So poor Dave. But back to you.
Yeah.
Another band of yours that you've worked with. Are you still working with Weezer, or was that in the past?
Been working with Weezer since the Blue album first came out.
Okay, so that is a fascinating thing to me because I remember reading an interview with Rivers where he said, before we were anybody, we got an offer for like 300 grand. And I knew my publishing was worth more than that. And I'm happy with Randall and his team and all that kind of thing. But in being such a Weezer fanatic from the early days, I see Kevin Rydell is on your staff. Now, what came first? Kevin working for you, or did Kevin pull in Weezer?
No, we were working with Weezer, from the beginning, and I think Kevin hasn't been here that full haul. He worked with Rivers and was in various bands and
Yeah.
talks about his spandex days. Kevin is our office manager and IT liaison, and he's been here for at least 10 years.
So, are there other budding singer-songwriters on your roster besides Kevin? I ask that because when you look at a film production, there are other people who could direct the film if the director didn't show up that day.
Yeah, I mean, are there other musicians on staff or what? I'm not sure of the question.
Are there other musicians or proper songwriters that are on your staff, whether it's, moonlighting or they had a cut back in the day?
No, I don't think so, really. I think there are people that make music in their spare time. I mean, the staff generally truly loves music.
Yeah.
And so, Jason Riss, who's, one of the co-owners of the company, he studied Spanish guitar and plays guitar. And, I think we have a drummer someplace around here. So.
Got it. Does music play in the office during the day at the Wixen headquarters?
It's really strange because the short answer is generally no. When people want to listen to stuff, they listen on headphones and stuff like that, and it's pretty rare. I think it has more to do with respect of being in an office environment, and we might have someone doing coding a program or an app in one room, and next door there might be someone playing David Lee Roth full blast, so headphones.
There you go. It always comes back to David Lee Roth. But
Of course.
Tom Petty, whose name I brought up, wonderful intro. I love the Rickenbacker story that you wrote and you added to that. And we were connected for this interview through Mitch Schneider, who was Tom's publicist at different points. When did you start working with Mitch or no Mitch? Was it through Tom?
Mitch might not like this story, but I think the first time he and I met, there was a thing where Richard Marx was donating $100,000 or something to the Children of the Night Foundation in Hollywood, and that was to keep younger girls off the street and
Right.
Prevent them from having to sell their bodies and perform sexual services out of desperation rather than want. And so I had the check in my office, and I had to bring it down to Hollywood to give it to Richard so he could present it to them. And Mitch was Richard's gatekeeper and publicist. And so I got there to the velvet rope, and I said, I have the check that Richard is going to present. And Mitch said, give it to me. And I said, no, I'm not giving it to anybody but Richard. And Mitch and I had a 5-minute standoff. And finally he said, fine, give it to Richard. But that's where we met and became friends.
In having dinner with Mitch a bunch of times and talking with him, I never knew he handled Richard Marx. I've gotten him to admit handling like Pauly Shore and some other people of that ilk over the years. I never knew he handled Richard Marx. Wow. So you see him at that thing, and then do you run into him in future events after that over the years?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Petty and other things like that. My Pauly Shore story
Oh, please.
is, a lot of people play jokes on me. Uh, I've had you know, people pretend to be other people and call me. And one day, Kevin Rydell said, "Hey, guess what? Pauly Shore is on the phone for you." And I thought it was a joke, so I answered the phone. I go, "Hey," and and it turned out it was really him. I was really embarrassed, but
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of multiple Pauly Shores in this world because you can do the whole Wheeze thing, and then you can look at how he had kind of had to evolve. But at the end of the day, he is the Comedy Store legacy and all that.
yes,
Comedy kind of started with his family in some respects.
yeah. But I mean, the people that have called here, and wanted to speak to me on various music things have included Donald Trump, Charles Manson, uh, Gene Simmons. And so you never know who's going to be legit and who's going to be just, someone wanting to get through by saying they're Ben Affleck.
I thought that your Pauly Shore thing was going to be because he had a single that MTV showed a little bit in the early '90s called "Hey Lisa." I don't know if you're going to say, "Oh, I publish Hey Lisa." That is a Wixen joint right there.
No, my recollection, and I have good recollections on some things in my life, and I can't remember where I parked my car this morning, but my recollection on Polly was that they were making a documentary about his life, and he wanted to use the Doors
Oh,
song "Break On Through" when he was coming out of his mother's womb, and the Doors declined it.
yeah.
Saying this is not a break on through moment. And so he wanted to call and see if there was anything that could be done. I wish him the best of luck with the documentary and anything he does, but it wasn't my decision. I end up being the messenger of unpopular messages sometimes.
That's right. So that goes back to the original thing that we were talking about, that some people see your name and go, oh, but I can tell right now you're a personable person who keeps good records, who I think you have a great memory and all that. Does it trouble you in any way? Do you lose any sleep in knowing that a certain percentage of the world curses your name?
It used to be more bothersome, but I mean, when I think about my big picture in the scheme of things and in life, what I've tried to do is protect writers, protect songwriters, protect artists, their legacies, and I feel very proud that I've been able to prevent people from making mistakes, doing the wrong things. And so, when someone gets in your face and is nasty to you because you're doing your job, it used to bother me a lot more than it does now. One of the people in the office, I mean, there's a lot of us here. There's almost 20 people in LA. But one of the people in the office had to deliver a message that I think a Missy Elliott sample was declined, and this person got called a music Nazi, and was very, very offended that he was being compared to Nazis for turning down a sample. And
Yeah.
it's if you're protecting a legacy, it happens.
Well, two softball questions for you, and then I let you go. And the first one is, does anyone get to call you Randy, or are you Randall to everybody?
I don't like the name Randall, and I certainly don't like the name Randy, but they were given to me. So about 5 years ago, I started telling people, my name is Radnall, Radnall, three L's, the third L is backwards. And so I said, you can call me Rad.
That works. I mean, with music industry royalty, which I called you, you didn't call yourself that. I can't imagine that Irving Azoff still wants to be called Irving. I would have to imagine you graduate to the Irv level at a certain point, or he's got like a Duke or something like that. Or am I wrong about that?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when I had lunch with Irving, I called him Irving. So
Oh, so he likes being in Irving.
I guess I don't know. That's what
Youngest
I always
Irving,
call him.
the youngest Irving in the world, I would say.
Yeah, he's probably in his late 70s, I guess. I'm in my mid 60s.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. And the last question, putting you on the spot here, what's the last concert that you went to for fun? Not because you had to hand a check to Richard Marx.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting that you say that because I think there's a lot of people in the music industry that really hate going to concerts, but that they feel like they have to go because the client has invited them. If they're not there, their absence will be noticed. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I think there's a lot of people that say, oh shit, I have to go that, and it won't end till 12, and
Yeah.
then I'll have to wait a half an hour, and then I'll go to the dressing room and I'll say hi for 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll get home at 2 in the morning, and my next 2 days will be wrecked. And I think there's a lot of that going on when people are being honest with each other.
Yes.
But realistically, the last thing I went to that I liked, I mean, that I went to because I wanted, I mean, there was an Iris Dement concert that I went to. I go to a lot of sort of local things at Pepperdine, local for me, or I went and saw Chris Hillman play in Thousand Oaks. I took my brother to see Willie Nelson play
Oh,
and at Cal State Northridge, the Mavericks at Cal State Northridge. I mean, these are older gigs, but I mean, that's the sort of thing where I'll go for fun.
so to rudely interrupt you, you are more of a classic country singer, songwriter, folk person rather than a David Lee Roth devotee that goes to every Roth show.
Yeah, I mean, I used to see 200 shows a year for years and years, and it's just not something that I can do as much anymore. And I went and saw the Zombies
Oh yeah.
when they were doing a bunch of shows in LA. That was something I wanted to see. But Danny Harrison is doing with this thing with these throat singers from someplace in
Mongolia, maybe?
Mongolia or something like that. I'd go see them for fun if they were in town because I've seen the videos and it looks amazing.
Wow.
But someone tells me, "Oh, your clients, the Black Keys, are in town." Well, I've seen them 10 times. They're great. I love them. But I'm only going to go to special gigs.
I admire that honesty. And, I am so happy to hear that somebody is allowed to publicly point out that how annoying the waiting around after the show is and losing the sleep is. So I commend you for that honesty. Thank you for the decades of protecting artists, and congrats on this new edition of the book. Looking forward to the 6th edition as well.
Okay, well, the 6th edition is probably not going to happen for a few years, so I can watch some baseball in the meantime.
Paltrocast.